is kind of here in front of him here today, what he's been doing for the last 25 or 30 years or more. I mean, it's really a great moment for him and for all of us who love him and want him to know how much we love him. And maybe foremost among his friends in his time here in Congress is Leader Pelosi, who will always be Speaker Pelosi to me, the very first woman speaker, extraordinary person, extraordinary friend, not only to Lodi but also to the Tibetan people. One of those stalwarts that is always there. I remember there was a moment when healthcare was being fought, and it was 24 hours a day, and it was blood everywhere. And I had requested a meeting with the then speaker, and I didn't think she'd ever give it, but because it was about Tibet, she gave us 45 minutes to talk. I don't know how that even happened, but she was there for us. And she has been there beginning, middle, and she'll be there in the end when we find a solution to this problem. She's one of those people who will be there. So please, she's got to go back now and go to the White House, but she wanted to say a few words. Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Richard. Aren't we really blessed, all of us who care so much about Tibet, that Richard Gyari is so devoted and dedicated to the cause. It is a cause, Tibet is, that challenges the conscience of the world. And his lending, his celebrity, his fame, his popularity to this issue has meant so very, very much. I'll just give you a little example. One time, when the president of China was coming to be honored at the White House at a state dinner, we had a stateless dinner a block away. And when we had the dinner, Richard Gyari was going to be there. So, Richard, you can immodestly attest to this. So much press, all the press and lights and all the rest. And Richard spoke so beautifully about Tibet and challenging China on its treatment of people in Tibet and the rest. And so some of my members said, I want to speak, but I have a long speech to make. I said, well, if you have a long speech to make, then you have to speak after Richard Gyari. I'm going to speak briefly before him, but you'll speak after him if you have a long speech. Well, I made my greetings. We brought on Richard Gyari. He spoke so movingly and beautifully about Tibet, and very serious, but what I'm going to say is, I think, funny. After he finished his speech, my colleagues were lining up for their long presentations. The whole press corps was gone. It was like this massive humanity there, cameras and all the rest, and then it was like one little plug coming out of the wall, like for the microphone, after he left. But just one example of how much visibility that he has given to this issue and how valuable that was. Now, that day we met, his sole was falling off his shoe. Remember? And when you came by.
Oh my God, I forgot. Yeah.
And I said, how come? And he said, well, I don't have time to tend to my shoes. Because he was so busy working on the issue of Tibet. So he's nonstop, constant, high profile, so committed, so valuable, so values-based. Aren't we blessed that Richard Gyari cares so much about Tibet and his willingness to do Since the other speakers are not to come in for a few minutes, I just want to share some thoughts with all of you about Lodi Gyari. I mean, he is so remarkable. I don't know how many goodbye parties we've had for Lodi, but none of them will measure up to the contribution that he has made to our understanding of what is happening in Tibet and the challenges faced by His Holiness the Dalai Lama as his representative in the United States. What's special about today, though, is that his family is here, his wife and his daughter. At least one of his daughters are here, and that is a big honor for all of us. Come on, Tenzing. Come on, another daughter. Come on, don't be shy. Because this is such, and to his family we say, clearly his brother, to his family we say thank you for sharing Lodi with us and with the world, because he has traveled the world representing His Holiness, but also teaching all the rest of us. And one of the things he taught us was about the importance of March 10th. Every year that's an important date for us. Come on. Oh, he'll come when he wants to come. He'll come when he wants to come. He wants him to enjoy it. They'll come when they want to come. No. And this March 10th, many of us gathered on the steps of City Hall in San Francisco. Some of you were there. We talked about what happened so many years ago in Tibet, the uprising and the rest. Again, Lodi had every year taken us through what had happened, and in between March 10th kept us apprised of what is happening now. I told them that day, and Richard, I want you to hear this story. I told them a story about His Holiness that I told at one of Lodi's going away parties in New York. And the story goes like this. We went to visit His Holiness in India. We had a delegation of members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans. It was very exciting for us to see all of the children there, and aren't they beautiful? The children, so beautiful. And the welcome we received with Tibetan flags and American flags and even Indian flags and the rest. But while we were there, His Holiness was receiving a number of people who had come over the mountain that day. And they were crying and they were bowing at the feet of His Holiness, telling them what they saw, what the Chinese were doing to the Tibetans. And that was that year where March 10th, was it 08? It was the big year, see? And so this was very significant. So anyway, we see that. We're very moved. We're in tears. This is so horrible what the Chinese are doing. So following that, sometime later in the day, we had lunch with about 200 lamas from all over the area. And we all had a chance to speak. And I told the lamas what I just told you that we had seen that morning. And I said, then we have our delegation here, and Mr. Sensenbrenner, we have to show China that even though they're a big nation, what they're doing in Tibet challenges the conscience of the world, and we lose all moral authority to talk about human rights any place in the world. You heard me the other day. Any moral authority to talk about human rights anywhere in the world if we don't face down China as a big commercial nation. And Mr. Sensenbrenner's here, and he's going to help with the visas, and another one's here is going to help with the bridge and the this and the that, and all the things the members of Congress were going to do, because we had to fight back what the Chinese were doing to the Tibetans in Tibet. So then His Holiness gets up after my remarks and says to the lamas who were there, the first thing we have to do is to rid Speaker Pelosi of her negative attitudes. I was speaker then. And so I told that story in Selma last week. When we were in Selma, I told that story because we were talking about that very thing. That's what Selma was about. It was about nonviolence. It was about civil disagreement. It was about what Martin Luther King learned from Mahatma Gandhi in India, the same spirituality. It was about what Nelson Mandela did, reconciliation, not revenge, in South Africa. It's what our better angels tell us to do. And speaking of better angels, Lincoln's phrase, that's what he did in Lincoln's second inaugural, his greatest speech, about reconciliation with the South and not harsh treatment. So this, what His Holiness, his lesson, that all of us, our students of him, have learned a long time ago, but me very directly in that lunch, is that we do, as we make these fights, have to do so in a way that tries to find common ground with many people who may share the value that we have in support of Tibet and take it to a higher ground of values and spirituality and reconciliation, because we really have important work to do. And Richard said, in the end, we don't know when the end is, but the end isn't going to come until everything is right in this situation, and we will keep controlling our negative attitudes, but making the fight as effective as we can in that regard. And that, again, is what Lodi has taught us over and over again. I'm so happy that Harry Wu is here. We fought together, well, I shouldn't say we acted together in terms of human rights in China and Tibet. Thank you, Harry, for being here. And you know that many distinguished members of Congress will be here. Senator Feinstein, Senator Kirk, Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Layton, who's been such a friend on all of this. And Matteo, thank you for taking the message to other parliaments. But again, back to Lodi's family. When you shared him with us, you made our lives so much better, and you advanced the cause of Tibet. Even though he was on the front line, your contribution was one that made all the difference in the world. Tashi Delay to you.
Let me just say a few words before Nancy leaves. She has to go to the White House. But she is not only the leader of the Democratic Party in the House, she is our leader, and I really mean it. We've been very fortunate. We've been so fortunate to have so many friends on the both sides of the aisle. But I can say without hesitation, what she has stood for, what she has done for Tibet is unparalleled. And I say it because, I say it with the confidence. Let me say two things before you leave. One is, she's been very kind to me. The most of the time when I went to her with my list of things to ask, she has always been very kind to agree. But during the MFN, that was one time that Nancy really was not very pleased with the position that we took. And I struggle even now, because every time the Chinese government starts behaving a little bit better, I think we did the right thing. By supporting President Clinton's effort to give China most favored nation. But when the Chinese government remains unchanged right now, then I really feel that we should have a lesson to Nancy Pelosi. But history will tell. But that was one time that Nancy really looked at me right in the eye and kind of said that, Lodi, do you really think you are doing the right thing? And that, has stayed very fresh in my mind. It will stay there. But the other thing is, Nancy, when you went to Dharamshala, when you as a speaker took a delegation to Dharamshala 2008, that was such an important, because remember, throughout Tibet, 2008, there were massive demonstrations. Tibetans, every part of the plateau rose up. The Chinese crashed them. They were really, I think, very deeply kind of demoralized. Even His Holiness felt, I have never seen His Holiness so saddened. And all these years, he's always very cheerful. We get sad, we get worried, and he just, makes fun of us. But that year, as you saw, His Holiness was also really deeply, deeply saddened. Your visit to Dharamshala that year, Nancy, I tell you, uplifted the courage and the spirit of the Tibetans inside Tibet and His Holiness. And I said the other day in New York, two things matter for the Tibetan struggle: His Holiness and the Tibetan people inside Tibet. Well, people like us in this room, we do matter, but not really so much. It is His Holiness as the Tibetan people inside Tibet. So that visit that we made to Dharamshala in 2008 really uplifted the courage and the spirit of the Tibetan inside Tibet and of His Holiness. So, Lady Pelosi, I want to thank you for that. And for me, you have been such a wonderful personal friend.
I love you.
Yes, I know you love me, and I really love you. And thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lodi. Thank you for everything, and for your overly generous words. But when we went to Tibet, we had planned that, to India, we had planned that trip like 6 months before. You have to plan these trips well in advance. But the outbreak in Tibet took place just days before we got there. So everybody thought we went there just on the spur of the moment, but the timing was great. Okay. So the Chinese government said, and they put out in their press, that Nancy Pelosi was the most unpopular person in China. And I said, yes! But don't tell His Holiness I said that.
Yeah, I mean, just please enjoy and mingle some more. There's so many old friends here who are just catching up with each other, so please continue, because we have some other speakers that are coming in a little bit. Thank you all so much.
So you enjoy.
Tibet Policy Act of 1997, thank you. We made it official in the U.S. government that there is a special coordinator for Tibetan affairs. So the first person who became that came out of the State Department, was an extraordinary lawyer and a senior person. We couldn't have had someone who was better suited to this job. But Greg Craig is here, our very first Tibet coordinator, and he's agreed to say a few words.
I met Lodi in 1997 when I got a call from the White House asking me to be the first coordinator on Tibetan affairs. And I was told that...
Is it on?
I think it's on, Richard. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. Yeah, okay. The long and the short of it was that I called up Lodi, I think it was the day or two after that I'd been appointed, and I was told, I said to Lodi, that the person I should take guidance from in how to become the first coordinator on Tibet was Lodi, Gyari. So I said, Lodi, would you like to come over to the White House and meet for the first time? I mean, not to the White House, to the State Department. And he said, no, I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to create any event of embarrassment. I'll meet you in a restaurant outside. And I said, no, come up to my office. My office was in the policy planning staff. And that was the first tradition, I think, that we broke, was that we accepted the personal representative of the Dalai Lama in the State Department. It was in 1997, had not happened before that. And I was reminded of that when we celebrated Losar in the State Department just a few days ago, the first time in the history of the United States that we'd celebrated a Tibetan New Year. And so, Lodi, you have been responsible not only for educating me about the wonders of Tibet and introducing me to His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. Senator Kirk is here. You've been a friend to all of us and a leader, a political leader as well as a spiritual leader. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you to Lodi, and thank you to Richard, and thank you to all of you.
No, but you did it good. No, but he's incredibly humble, but you've got to understand what it was like for him. It was like, I've said this is like going through the jungle with a machete, and there was no way of knowing how to do what he invented. How you do this as a special coordinator for Tibet. Not an easy thing at all. And all these firsts happened. Lodi being in the State Department the first time. The way that it was just accepted that Lodi was coming in and out of the White House and out of the State Department. These were huge things, huge thresholds that we got past. And that's because of Greg Craig. So thank you so much. Now we have another good friend of Lodi and of Tibet who I haven't met before. Senator Mark Kirk. I was looking through his bio, and the most important thing about him is he came from New Trier High School, and one of my first girlfriends actually also went to New Trier High School. So thank you very much. Very nice actress. Penelope Milford was her name. But anyhow, look, we are here. And Annette, I mean, you've got to come up and say something. Yes. Just very quickly.
My husband, Congressman Tom Lantos, and I was his executive assistant. We were the first ones in Congress to invite His Holiness to come and testify before the Congressional Human Rights Caucus, which my husband created and chaired, about the situation in Tibet. And that was, he sort of made a tremendous impact on Washington. We couldn't believe it, because we just wrote a personal letter, and he answered us in a equally personal note that he accepts our invitation. And by the time he came to testify, he was on the front page of the Washington Post. So we were very delighted that we could introduce Washington to His Holiness and His Holiness to Washington. He was here before, but I don't think in such a major capacity. So we just keep hoping that someday we are going to be celebrating his homecoming. Thank you for all being here.
Thank you. Well, I can't tell you how important the Lantoses have been to the Tibetan movement and how close friends they are to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but also to Lodi Gyari Rinpoche, really close friends. Senator Kirk, would you come up and say a few words for us, please? Another of great friends of Tibet and of Lodi Gyari. Can I help you, or should we bring the mic over to you? You okay?
Yeah, okay. Richard, I would correct you on one thing. When you talk about multiple lantoses, that's the lantai.
The Lantai.
Exactly.
Many Lantoses are Lantai, apparently.
I just want to thank everybody for coming and helping out. We are fans of Lodi Gyari. Round of applause for Lodi. Yeah. Let me just all bless you on this St. Patrick's Day. You all are Tibetan Irish people. That I have been very dedicated to this the Tibetan cause to make sure somewhere in Lhasa we have a shot at independence and freedom, and so that in this temple of democracy, that someone is always listening to the people of Tibet, and that's as it should be. So let me thank you, everybody. Richard, thank you for giving us the notice. Thank you very much.
You okay?
Thank you, man.
All right?
Thank you. Good
I
stuff.
know you're recovering.
Yeah, very much so.
But you're moving.
I'm moving, yeah. Still alive. Thank you.
Can I say just one word about my friend?
Of course. This is your event. Lodi keeps asking me if he can do something. It's your event. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you. It is out of habit. Richard has been my boss as the chairman of the ICT board for the last 20 years. So even now I feel that I have to ask his permission before I say anything. Anyway, I just wanted to say, Senator Mark, such a wonderful friend. We first started working together when Senator Mark was a staffer, then a congressman, then of course, you see, a senator. But throughout, he had always been very, very steady friend of Tibet, of His Holiness. And then, of course, personally, you see, I'm very proud to have friendship with this great senator. My friend, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lodi.
Thank you.
Stay right here. Yeah,
The very first Hispanic in the Congress.
Very nice. You're very nice. Thank you, Richard. Thank you.
School teacher.
Whoa, you've been doing your homework.
Our favorite Cubana.
That's right.
Who was born in Havana.
That's right.
And one of our closest friends. And I must say, when I go to offices and talk to my buddies, there's no office that I have to take more photographs than Ileana.
This is true.
At least 50 every time I go. So I have to leave a lot of time when
That's a good
I go.
reputation. You could say worse.
I remember when we were trying to get the votes necessary for the Congressional Gold Medal, there were several key people that we went to. One was Nancy Pelosi, but Ileana Leighton Ross was the other one.
That's right. Thank
And
you.
we had to push, And I had to go into that office and take 50 more photographs every time. But she said, look, what do you need? I'll make it happen. She got the votes, she went office to office, got on the phones, and made that happen. And she really is one of the key people that made that Congressional Gold Medal happen. And it was an extraordinary effort. We can thank her forever for that. But close friend to Tibetans, a genuine human rights advocate all across the board, not just Tibet, but everywhere, and a very deep and close friend to Lodi Gyari Rinpoche. So Ileana, would you say a few words?
Thank you, I sure will. Thank you so very much. What a thrill to get that introduction from this hunk. Thank you so much, Lodi. Lodi and I more or less came together around the same time. We got here in D.C. Annette reminded me that Lodi actually testified before what is now the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission in 1987. 2 years later, in 1989, Richard is very nice to have pointed out that I don't know how it happened, but I became the first Hispanic woman elected to Congress. Is this a great country or what? So it's been my pleasure to have worked with Lodi, with Richard Gere, with Annette Lantos, and all of you human rights activists throughout the world. As you know, Lodi was a special envoy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whose forced exile and his flight to India over 50 years ago is a continuing source of profound sorrow, not just for the people of Tibet, but for all of us who cherish human rights and freedom of expression. And there's been no steadier voice on the issue of religious freedom, on the issue of human rights in these corridors of power than that of the quiet but determined voice of the Dalai Lama and his representative, Lodi. Lodi is an extension of that voice, and his knowledge, his guidance, his persistence has been instrumental in the many victories that Richard talked about, generating awareness of Tibet in Congress with so many pressing issues. But what is more important than freedom and religious expression? And we have been able to build this coalition, driving real change that we want in the government's Tibet policy, and promoting respect for the rights of the people of Tibet. In 2002, as Richard pointed out, I was so proud to join Tom Lantos and Annette and Richard and Lodi in helping pass the Tibetan Policy Act, which created the Special Coordinator for Tibet within the State Department. And in 2005, as Richard said, we were so honored, so blessed, so proud to sponsor legislation awarding the Congressional Gold Medal to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that would not have been possible without Lodi, who played such a critical role in both of those efforts, just like every resolution and bill that we've passed regarding Tibet has had the fingerprint of Lodi on it. He's worked tirelessly to keep the issue of Tibet alive in Congress, and even though he's stepping down from ICT, we all know that his work fighting for the people of Tibet will never end. And so we too must keep fighting for Tibet. And even as we speak, what is going on? Well, Beijing's communist leaders are working to ensure that the people of Tibet are denied their most basic, fundamental human rights and religious freedom. The iron grip of Beijing cannot silence, cannot repress, cannot extinguish the resilient Buddhist spirit of the people who occupy the land that is known as the rooftop of the world. And we in Congress must renew our commitment to the people of Tibet. We must show the regime in China that the United States stands with the people of Tibet against the repression in Beijing, against its censorship, against the surveillance of Tibetans, and making sure that the regime's destruction of their way of life will not happen. So now is the time for our colleagues to reconfirm their full support for the Dalai Lama and for his oppressed people. So Lodi, thank you for your many years of friendship and warm support. It has been one of the greatest honors of my life to have worked with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless us with your presence. Thank you.
All right, we have another treat here right now. Ileana, thank you so much. Look, everyone loves you. You're so approachable, you're so nice, you're so committed, but you're a solid person. This is a movement that can't exist without solid people. And you don't come in for 6 months when you do something like this. You commit a life. So thank you for having committed this part of your life to us. Thank you. Now we have another special speaker here, His Holiness's representative in the Office of Tibet here in Washington, Kedor, and I'll get the name wrong, Akesang. Now Kedor, I actually met Kedor a while ago. I think you actually worked for us briefly in Tibet House. Did you work for us briefly with Tibet House? Like a long time ago. The Reuben, the Himalayan Institute you worked. Yes, you did work there well. But he also, most importantly, he worked with Sebastião Salgado in his foundation. He was one of the great photographers of our time and was running his organization. But he's also done this kind of extraordinary yeoman work of going through a jungle and trying to figure out how to make an Office of Tibet here in Washington. He's been doing an extraordinary job. Has been working very closely with Matteo Macaci. And it's a wonderful team, the two of them here in Washington. So please, Cato, come and say a few words.
Thank you, Richard, Mrs. Lantos, Congresswoman Rinpoche, and all the friends here. Thank you also to Leader Pelosi, who's not here, but I had the wonderful honor last week in San Francisco, where Mrs. Pelosi came and participated in the commemoration of the March 10th National Uprising Day. As Rinpoche said, Leader Pelosi is indeed one of our strongest supporters and friends on the Hill. So thank you, Leader Pelosi. I don't have a prepared remark here this afternoon, but when I look around the room, there are so many friends, familiar faces, and people who have really worked on the Tibet issue for a long, long time. And I think it's a wonderful testimony to Rinpoche's leadership that after all these years, that you're still here, that you still show up and express your support. I've personally known Rinpoche for many years now, and as you all know, Rinpoche has worked at the highest level of the Tibetan leadership for many, many years, starting from the early years in the Tibetan civil society and then making his way up through the Tibetan central administration, going on to assume very senior leadership positions. I personally learned quite a bit watching Rinpoche and how he's really advanced the Tibet issue in the US particularly. Rinpoche came here at a time when the Tibet issue was still relatively unknown, and there was a lot of education that needed to be done. And thanks to Rinpoche's leadership, we've built a very strong base of support, not only on the Hill, but pretty much throughout the country. So thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your service. thank you for everything that you've done for the Tibet issue and for bringing prominence, for bringing together friends like Richard, like Mrs. Lantos and her late husband, like the Congresswoman, and many others. As I was saying earlier, about 10 days ago, we had a meeting here in Washington where we brought together some experts and resource people on the issue with the goal of really trying to strategize, with the goal of how we can advance the Tibet issue, how we can bring some new ideas. And as I was sharing with them at that meeting, for those of you who are here in this room today, you've been with us for quite a while, and I urge you to keep the faith, because even though the road has been long and hard, but I feel like we're getting closer. We're getting closer because the truth is on our side. We're getting closer because we have someone that no one else has, which is His Holiness. As I shared with the community in San Francisco last week, we really have in His Holiness Gandhiji, Martin Luther King, and Mandela all rolled into one. So who else can claim to have something like His Holiness? So I personally, when I wake up every morning and go to my office, I go with the belief that during the lifetime of His Holiness, we will arrive at a solution which works both for the Chinese government as well as for the Tibetan people. So this is a belief that I have, and which I know is the aspiration of Tibetans everywhere, especially Tibetans in Tibet. And lastly, I feel that we will arrive at our destination because of the approach that we have taken. Thanks to the leadership and the guidance of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, Tibetans have taken a path of nonviolence, a path of peace. Even though the repression in Tibet is severe, but the commitment to nonviolence, the commitment to peace, and the commitment to resolving the Tibet issue through dialogue, those are non-negotiable. So because of all those three factors, I really feel that we will arrive at a solution which is mutually beneficial. So as I go around the community, as I visit Tibetans everywhere, I always remind them of the sacrifices and contribution of our elders, people like Rinpoche have done. So that's something which we can never forget, because it's thanks to the hard work of the elder generation, thanks to the hard work of people like Rinpoche and his colleagues who've really gone out and done the work in the trenches and really build the support and the base that we have now. So again, without taking up too much more time, thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you. It's been a real honor and pleasure to have worked with you and to have seen how you work. And I hope we can continue to avail of your expertise and guidance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kedor. I just would like to offer that I paid for his desk at the office. I just want to be clear. When you go over there and you see his desk, I paid for the desk, okay? All right? Okay. There is someone here who, I don't even know when it started. He told the story to us a few months ago. You weren't even a teenager when it started. There's a man who's been involved with almost everything to do with Tibet 59. And sometimes I don't know exactly how, but he's had his fingerprints on almost everything. He has a legal mind, he has an international mind, he understands things in a way that I don't. He's been invaluable to ICT, he's been invaluable to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's been invaluable to Lodi Gyari Rinpoche, and to everyone else who's trying to do this professional work that we are all trying to do with Tibet. Michael Van Walt, one of the extraordinary people. Michael, will you come and say a few words, please?
Thanks, Richard. Thank you, Richard. I've seen Kerala's desk, and it's a beautiful desk. And I think a number of important decisions and documents will hopefully flow from it. I think we're fortunate, and I'm really happy to just say a few words here because we're among friends. We're among people who I think when I look around have been in one way or another in this movement for a long time. And so it's a wonderful occasion that Lodi again has managed to bring us together to rejuvenate perhaps our enthusiasm and our commitment. So for this reason, I'd like to say a few words. And I think we're fortunate also to have Kedorla in the position he is now as representative of His Holiness here in Washington to lead on behalf of the Tibetans, and Matteo Mikachi as the president of ICT to continue reminding the US, reminding this city, but reminding the world also of what's happening in Tibet. Now, but the real reason why I'm really happy to say something is because of this opportunity to say just a couple of words about and to Lodi. We've known each other since 1973, which is a long time, and we've been in the trenches as a manner of saying, ever since, in many different ways, in different capacities. We've worked together in relation to the cause of Tibet and some other issues as well over this period of time. And really, Lodi is in many ways my mentor and has been. And there are really few or no other people that I know that have managed to stay focused on an issue tirelessly for so long and so effectively. In various things that I've done, I have seen many diplomats. In fact, I'm a son of a diplomat, so I grew up among diplomats. And I've seen a lot of them at work, all over the world, some of them dealing with extremely difficult issues. I don't think I know a diplomat who works as well and as effectively as Lodi Gyari has worked without a major government to back him, without a diplomatic staff and machinery to not only back him, but to make it possible for him to do what he's done. An extraordinary man, but an extraordinary man not just because of the effectiveness of the ways he's managed to move people at the highest levels in governments all over the world, not just in Washington, but all over the world. But because he's been able to touch people personally, the way he has me, the way he has, I know, you all, he's been able to touch people in a personal way about the cause, about themselves, about what they have to offer to the world and what they have to offer to the Tibetan cause that is really incomparable. And so I think the movement has an enormous gratitude to show to Lodi Gyari for the work that he's done before he came to the US and for the decades that he's worked here in the US. And I'd like to thank him, but I'd also like to thank everybody in the movement for having committed themselves and worked so hard for it. But I think today we've all known that this is a movement for the long haul. It's not when you're working in relation to such big powers as China, it's not an easy task, obviously. And despite the fact that the movement has His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Tibetan people have His Holiness the Dalai Lama as an incomparable person to lead this kind of movement. It's an incredible and slow uphill battle. And at each step of the way, there are still people suffering in Tibet, and that continues. So we know it's been the long haul. But I would like us to feel that we have an opportunity now to recommit ourselves and to not think that this is just business as usual. There is a time that we need to feel a sense of urgency. And there is a sense of urgency today for a number of reasons. One of them, of course, is that His Holiness has already partially retired and is not going to be always as active as he has been in the past. Things change. China has changed. China's power has increased in the world. And so there is now reasons for urgency for us to act even more than we have in the past, to recommit ourselves, but to also continue to engage with members of Congress, continue to get their support, and get new members of Congress and senators to support the Tibetan cause. Just to see Mrs. Lantos here, with whom I remember working in starting in the very early 80s to make things move on the Hill, really reminds me of, again, a person who has had such a long-term commitment and focus on this issue with Congressman Lantos, but the two as a team, an inspiring team. I'm re-energized by your presence, Mrs. Lantos, as I am by Lodi's and the eternal Richard Gere. Thank you.
Michael and I had very dark hair when we started this. I just want you all to know. But he weighs the same amount as he did 40 years ago. How do you do it? Okay, please have another drink. I think there's some more people coming. We'll be around here, so stick around. All right. All right, there's a change of plans, everyone. There's a short break. But the reason that we're here has now presented itself, and Lodi's agreed to say a few words. This is pretty emotional for me because Lodi is my brother, but he's actually my older brother by about 5 days. Lodi and I are the same age. We were both born in August of 1949, which is also the year that China invaded Tibet. So I don't know what the reincarnation connection is with me, but clearly there's something going on there. Lodi's been one of my dearest and closest friends, not just in the Tibet world, but just in the world. And he's always been there for me, as I believe I've always been there for him. The commitment goes beyond his retirement, beyond what he decides to do, and he'll continue to do extraordinary things, and hopefully even things that he's not even thinking about now that present themselves to him, that he's not been able to think about for the last 50 years or so. The little that I know, I learned from him. The little that I know about the Hill, about being skillful, about talking about an important subject that means something to me, what I learned about commitment, that this isn't a short run, this is a very long run, that nonviolence takes a very long time, that these are universal issues we're dealing with. Lodi and I have connected on these levels that Tibet, of course, is about Tibet, but it's about greater things than Tibet also. The same way His Holiness has become greater than Tibet. the cause of Tibet is much, much larger than Tibet itself. And Lodi's always kept his eyes on that prize, and it's been clear every time I hear him speak. Of course he's speaking for Tibet. Of course he's speaking for the people inside of Tibet. But he's speaking about all the people who are suffering all over this planet and all the other planets. That this is a movement that, of course, started with the Buddha, that we have the Dalai Lama who keeps reminding us of that larger mission that we're all on right now. But Lodi has found a way to function in Washington, but also in capitals all over the world, and touch them on that level, that we are in this together, that if we are skillful and generous and realize that we all have to succeed, there is a win-win in every situation, and that's what we're working towards, that we will succeed. It won't happen tomorrow, it won't happen next week, but it will happen, and we have to keep working towards that. Lodi really did teach me how to do this, as he's taught most of everyone in this room how to do this, and to do it with heart, to do it with true, genuine friendship, with no quid pro quo. He does it because it's the right thing to do, and he'll continue doing it because it's the right thing to do. Our brother, our father, our partner, a really close friend, Lodi Gyari Rinpoche.
Richard always makes me feel emotional. And then I forget to, first I try to think, some points that I want to share. Then I listen to Richard, and then I forget everything that I wanted to say. Anyway, when I walked into this room this afternoon, one of my Tibetan friends asked me, so you chose this day? So I first didn't understand, because earlier someone said, very nice day. So I thought that she was talking about this day being, nice day, sunny day. Then she said, do you know, today is the day, 17th of March, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama left Lhasa. What an auspicious thing. Because His Holiness was able to leave Tibet, the Tibet issue still is alive. So it's very interesting. I told her, I said, I had no hand. In fact, for a long time, the ICT board, my friends, kind of kept it confidential from me. So it was not a choice that I made, but I just wanted to really share with you. I really felt indeed very auspicious, because that was the day that His Holiness, under tremendous threat, in the middle of the night, left Lhasa to freedom, to continue the struggle for his people. So I just thought I should share that with you. When I was told that the ICT board and bipartisan group of members of Congress wanted to honor me, I felt that it is we Tibetans who should be honoring our friends, not them honoring us. It is our struggle, it is our fight. So I just want to take this opportunity on my behalf, on behalf of, I think, every Tibetan, that we are truly grateful to all of you. This movement would not have reached where it has reached without you being there with us. And I really mean it. Earlier, Kedur, His Holiness representative, made a remark to say that we have to find, that he hopes that a solution to Tibet could be found or should be found during the lifetime of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Not only I agree with him, in fact we have to find a solution during his lifetime. I'll be very candid. Without his presence, we want to talk about nice things, we want to reassure ourselves, but we also have to be realistic. I personally believe that it will be, if not impossible, difficult, both for the Chinese to resolve this issue without the participation, without the help of His Holiness. So that not only in his lifetime, in the next, when he's, His Holiness in great health, in great shape, but he's going to be 80 years old soon. So I think we really have to make extra effort. And I really feel really rejuvenated. I'm retiring, I'm getting old, but I feel a lot of energy in this room, so I'm really very happy about that. And I also, feel very happy because at the ICT, we really have a dynamic young leader who has taken over. Matthew Makachi, but he cannot do it alone, just as I was not able to do anything. In fact, today you honor me, but I feel kind of a little embarrassed, to be very frank. I'm being honored for the hard work of all of you in this room and many others. And I said, well, since I'm retiring, maybe I can take credit. Similarly, he's capable, he's young, he's energetic, great experience, parliamentarian, but he can't do without your help. He has a great board though. He has a great board, ICT has a great board, and we had, and Richard, a great leader for more than 20 years. He's not just a board member, you see, to be on your stationery, a board member that really has taken the leadership. And then similarly also, the Office of Tibet has moved here to Washington, D.C., and we have another young man heading it. His father and my father were great friends. His father and my father belonged to that generation of Tibetans, totally dedicated and loyal. So I feel, extra happiness to see that friend of my father, a colleague of mine, the late Chambakalden's son is today heading the Office of Tibet. And when I look at people like him and others, I feel that, well, maybe you see the future is, there's a hope. But we have to work together. One thing you can never succeed, no matter how capable, how smart, how intelligent you are, never think that you can alone do anything. That I have learned. You can do a lot of things if you bring people together, work together, and learn the things that you do not know. Learn. I have learned a lot. I've been very fortunate to have such a great teachers in India, here in the United States, friends, and whatever I have done is because of, at least I was learning, willing to learn. So I wanted to again thank everyone who has really been a great teacher to me. I think as a young monk, at least even when I go to see some politicians, political leaders, I really go to them with kind of reverence, like going to Lama, to receive a teaching, different kind of teaching. But I just wanted to say that to especially the young people who are taking over, this movement. And I'm also very happy, my colleague, my friend, Tenzin Tatong, who has been sometimes my boss because he was also the Kalyan Tiva or the Prime Minister, but more importantly, is someone that we together from the Youth Congress had a hand in, establishing the ICT and a lot of things. So he's here, and so is Rinchi Talula and Losan Yandala. Both were former representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and we really worked as a team to make the success. Finally, again, Richard, you have been such a wonderful friend. Friend of the movement, great disciple of His Holiness, and a dependable friend, loyal friend. You're right, there are times that, I had a shoulder when I sometimes needed to cry. And you have a very strong and firm shoulder. Thank you for that, my friend. Finally, today I have my wife, my niece, my two daughters, my brother, and the two grandchildren. I really want to thank them also because my wife has been key factor in my being able to do what I did. So I wanted to also thank her and my family. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we wanted to have this moment, and just a really heartfelt moment for our friend Lodi Gyari Rinpoche, and just let him know how much we love him and appreciate him, and we don't know quite what's going to happen when you're gone. So it's a kind of an odd moment for us here, and we've kind of been dragging this on, the exit, because we haven't quite let you go, because we don't want you to go. But one of the things we want to accomplish, I think, in this day also, is to let everyone know what the new ICT will be, and what the face will be, and how many of us are still going to be here working, but also that our new president, Matteo Macacci, is here, and introduce him to all of you that you haven't met before, but create a context too, that when it was clear that Lodi was going to leave, and Lodi and I kind of had a partnership here, that if he stayed a little longer, I was going to stay a little longer, and we realized that there's no way these old dogs are going to keep this going forever. So we needed some new dogs. And there are a lot of new dogs that have showed up, and some are in the room right now. But there was one new dog that we especially liked that I met in Rome at the parliamentarians conference. And when was that? There was 2009. And there was a man there who was organizing things. And I know Italians very well. Not the best organized people in the world. But there was one who was. And he was a spark plug of energy and ability. Intelligent and wise beyond his years. Skillful with people. And also could get things done. And I was really watching him in the process, and I thought, well, really, this is someone we need. I ran into him again in Ottawa, a year later, 2 years later, also at the parliamentarians conference there. And it was clear that this is someone who was larger than the Italian parliament, that was clearly doing democracy work internationally, human rights work internationally, that his career was going in that direction. And we find ourselves in the incredibly lucky position, fortunate position, of having Matteo. We poached him from the Italians, and he's now with us. And he's running ICT and doing an extraordinary job. And I'd love him to come and say a few words, and you get to know him a little bit. Matteo?
Thank you. Wow. What to say? First of all, I think, Lodi, you must be very proud. You must be very proud today, not just because what people have said about you, but for all of your accomplishments. But we don't think about it, but we were born in the free world. Lodi was born in Tibet. Lodi was a refugee. Lodi escaped with his family, under such difficult conditions, and he has done what he has done here in Washington and in many other capitals of the world. So we should never forget that, what Tibetans have been going through for decades, what they have been able to achieve, also compared to other refugee situations and populations that I have worked with and worked on for many years. I think Tibetans are a special case, and there are special reasons for that. And some of the reasons are also the people that have been leading this movement. And this is something that people forget. We don't remember that there are individuals who make things happen. And you are one of those individuals. Everybody in this room knows. Everybody has been helping you in one way or another, but you have been helping them to achieve that. So you really must be proud, you, your family, and all your friends all over the world of what you have done. So I would like to really be brief, but just say a few words about what you're trying to do and what is the context in which you are working. The world in which we live today is probably a different world from when Lodi arrived in Washington, D.C., but even from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the world landscape is changing. Politics internationally is changing radically. And China is one of these big changes all over the world. And I think I find for myself it's a humble, but it's a honor, it's a great responsibility to be part of a movement that has a clear mandate, which is to remind our societies. ICT works in Washington, works in Brussels, in Amsterdam, in Berlin. We have friends in Australia. We want to be in other places, but we were born to talk to, and to remind to our societies that there are values that are important and that cannot be forgotten for us, not just for the Tibetans. This is something that is really deep into our mission, and we find ourselves today in a world where doing this kind of job is every day more difficult, because there are other values, there are other reasons, there are other objectives, there are other, important things for societies, for governments, for parliaments. So it's a very uphill struggle, but it's a necessary one. Someone has to do this job, and there are not many other peoples that are able to do that. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has, this is his mandate, his vision, and now is even higher than Tibet. He speaks to the whole humanity, he speaks to the entire world to try to remind people that the values of tolerance, compassion, coexistence are something that we need to enforce and to make part of our lives. So this is our goal. It's such a huge objective and goal that sometimes if you think about it, your wrists are trembling, because how are we going to be able to do it? I feel that things are going to change. Things are going to change because the people in China are changing. The society there is changing. The world is changing. Some of the values that we are promoting, although they seem to be part of a minority, in effect they are shared by large chunks, the majority of public opinions worldwide. We look at the opinion polls about the popularity of His Holiness. It's huge. It's over 80% in many countries of the world. This is real power. You don't feel it. It's not military power, but it's there. And the people's mind, the people's voices are going to change the way in which the governments will behave, the parliaments and so on. So we are going to make it one way or the other, because the people will want this to happen. So we have to keep doing our job, to do it in a better way, becoming more professional, and do our best. And we really count on your support. Some of you might be a little bit tired after so many years, after trying so many ways to make it happen, and then, it works a little bit, and there are setbacks, and there are bad news coming every day. Western countries are divided. Some European countries are joining the Asia Development Bank promoted by China. The US is not in agreement. So a lot of things are happening. But we need you and new people like you to continue to be part of this movement, because the moment in which things will change for China and for Tibet will come. No authoritarian government ever in the history can last forever. And this is true for China as well. Beijing, they know. They look very powerful. They are very fragile, because the basis of support from the people is not there. So they know that this is coming, and they're trying to make it, and delays and not make it happen. So this is our work. We really need, support from all of you, and guidance and advice, as I always try to learn. Although, I'm always introduced as young, I'm now, 40 years old, and my prime minister in Italy is 40 years old, 1 month of difference. So I think it's also our time to try to make things change in this country, in many other countries of the world where these values are forgotten. But we really need the wise advice and the learning experience that we have done with you, Lodi, and with many others, with His Holiness, to which we always seek advice and support to continue to appeal to the good part which is in each of us, which is in each of our government representatives, the parliamentarians, to try to do the right thing. So here in Washington, we will continue to do that with Congress. We are planning some concrete initiatives for the next month, so stay tuned. And we will try to do it here and everywhere where we can. Thank you very much. Thank you.
As an old buddy of Gyari Rinpoche way back in 1970 in Dharamsala, just imagine how Dharamsala would be then. I remember Gyari Rinpoche as one of the founding members of the Tibetan Youth Congress. He the late Kalin Sonam Thopgil, the present director of the Tibetan Service Radio for Asia Tibetan, and famous commentator writer Jamyang Nurbu, were our heroes in Dharamsala on those days. And I too joined Tibetan Youth Congress and still remain committed to the Tibet cause. Rinpoche, of course, later on joined the administration, became a bureaucrat, and over the decades, he surely became so important, so influential in Tibetan politics, if you permit to say that of lately, Rinpoche is also known as the Tibetan Kissinger. Have you heard of that term before? Maybe. And just as His Holiness will continue to work for Tibet behind the scene, I have no doubt that Gyari Rinpoche's influence outside of his present job from the outside will continue. He has created a space for himself that is indispensable for Tibetan issue. I'm for sure that although he won't be active in an organization, heading an organization, but behind the scenes, I'm sure many are looking, including myself, what will Rinpoche continue to do so. I'm still sure that he is not too old to continue work for Tibet. And with His Holiness' blessing and his experience, I'm sure we still look for Gyari Rinpoche's guidance, and I'm pretty sure that he will continue to work and not say goodbye to the Tibetan cause. Thank you so much.
Went out into the world and made it an international movement. And please, Tenzin, say something. Say a few words for us. Tenzin Tetong.
Well, first of all, thank you. I didn't mean to come and find a few minutes here, but it's a great honor to just say a few words for Rinpoche. I've known Rinpoche since my teenage years, so we have a long history and it's a long story. But being brief is very important. Rinpoche has made a tremendous contribution to the cause of Tibet, and Rinpoche has a tremendous talent and skills, including a great deal of persistence, which many of us actually lack. Some of us are very skilled and talented. We just can't grind it out. Rinpoche can grind it out. So it's great that everybody's here to celebrate Rinpoche's work. And thank you very much. And thank you, Richard, for sort of being with us right to the end. I just came to say hello. Toji Che.
Thank you. And I'm also really struck here. Rinpoche, when did you come here? The first time to Washington?
First time,
Probably about 1985 or 6.
in the 80s, mid-80s.
Mid-80s, when you came here, did you ever think you were going to have an event like this in the rotunda of the Capitol with really important senators and congresspersons and State Department people, et cetera, speaking about what an extraordinary person you are, but also feeling comfortable here? You couldn't have felt comfortable in the mid-80s. But this is a man, I really, you have no idea how important that was, that he can walk into the State Department. He can walk into the State Department, walk into the Capitol, walk into the White House, go to Gyari Rinpoche as a representative, special representative of the Dalai Lama. So all these doors are open to you. But you made that happen because of your own force of personality and your character. But what an extraordinary thing. It's like people can say, well, I think maybe I achieved things. This was in front of you. It's right here, right now, what you were able to achieve in terms of the soft power and of people, of the personal relationships that you've created over these years, which are real. But also your access to power, because you yourself are power now. What an amazing thing, Rinpoche.
One thing I forgot to mention, Annette, one great honor today is to have Annette Lantos here. Really, I mean, I'm honored by all your presence, but her being here is very special. Because I know that lately Annette does not go to too many events. And even in your own events, you don't speak.
Yes.
You make your children speak,
Yes.
but today you spoke also.
I did speak.
So it truly means how much you have cared for us. So I just wanted to say that I'm honored by all your presence, but I'm special honored
Well,
that
thank you.
you came
Well,
today.
you know, Tibet has been our number one concern and our number one heart issue. You know, we actually, as you know, we are Hungarians, and we discovered that Hungarians actually originated in Tibet. That's our homeland. So I consider Tibet as a Hungarian, my Hungarian homeland.
Now we know why. You know,
Yeah.
there are so much coming to the Tibet. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Bless you, and we keep praying. Thank you.
See, my chairman also, I'm no more on the board, so technically he's not my boss, but he now says that, say goodbye to everyone, say goodbye to everyone. So as chairman has ordered, anyway, thank you all really deeply. So many Tibetan friends also here today, so many colleagues, and I really thank you all. And
we don't want you to go tired.
so anyway, thank you very much. So I haven't spoken more. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I guess that's it. Look, for me it was moving. I think all of us who've been involved with this is moving for us to come together in these times and congratulate ourselves for the hard work we've done. But this is a moment for Lodi. And it's the outpouring of love here, my friend, has been extraordinary. And, you know, it's been going on for a year as you've been contemplating this. I know there was a Tibet Fund dinner for Lodi last year, last fall? The year before. So that was like the beginning. It felt like that was the beginning of your transition. And this will not be the end of it either. I'm sure this will trickle on for a while. But you're a greatly loved man, and I know you deeply appreciate that all of your friends showed up for this. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you at the next event. With even more energy, more drive, more ideas, and more commitment. Thank you.